Zezuro, Surotudur, July 10th, 2026. 3 commercial vessels, 5 drones and missiles confirmed across all 3 hulls. The Strait of Hormuz, Monday, July 7th. Iranian forces struck civilian shipping in the exact waterway they had been explicitly warned against, repeatedly, in formal negotiations. The strike shattered whatever remained of the diplomatic framework holding this confrontation in check. They struck anyway. Iranian state media ran its standard script. The ships had ignored warnings. There was no official claim of responsibility. The IRGC maintained its usual architecture of plausible deniability. Yet everyone with access to maritime surveillance data could attribute the attack within the hour. That was Monday. By Wednesday morning, July the 9th, U.S. Central Command released target imagery documenting 170 confirmed Iranian military targets struck over the preceding 48 hours. Fireballs lit up the night sky. GBU-31 2,000-pound bombs detonating against coastal infrastructure. Radar stations vanishing in massive pressure waves visible from drone footage. Drone launch facilities reduced to smoldering wreckage. Fast attack boats destroyed at their moorings. 170 targets. 2 nights. The most consequential 48-hour military exchange in this conflict since the February operations. This was not a limited response. This was precision, overwhelming, and deliberate. But to truly understand what these 170 targets represent and why the United States chose to hit them with such devastating force at exactly this moment, we must go back to what Iran actually did on July 7th and why it mattered enough to trigger this level of response. The Strait of Hormuz is approximately 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Through this narrow choke point passes roughly 20% of the world's seaborne oil, the physical lifeline that heats homes, powers factories, and fuels economies across Asia, Europe, and beyond. Iran has spent decades building the military capability to threaten this critical artery as its primary instrument of strategic leverage. Fast attack boat swarms, anti-ship and missile batteries lining the northern coastline, mining capabilities, coastal radar and surveillance networks designed to track every vessel transiting the strait at all times. For Iran, the ability to threaten closure of the strait is not incidental. It is the very core of Iranian strategic power. Yet on July 7th, they crossed a line they had been warned not to cross, and America answered with overwhelming force. This is not just another exchange in a long shadow war. This is the moment the rules changed. Stay with me, because what happened next reveals everything about the current balance of power in the Middle East. To understand why the United States responded with such overwhelming force to Iran's actions on July 7th, we must first understand the true strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz. The strait is approximately 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, yet through this narrow corridor passes roughly 20% of the world's seaborne oil. This is not just another shipping lane, it is the physical conduit for energy that heats homes, powers factories, and fuels entire economies across Asia, Europe, and beyond. Any disruption here sends immediate shockwaves through global markets. For decades, Iran has invested heavily in building the military capability to threaten this critical choke point. Fast attack boat swarms, anti-ship missile batteries positioned along the northern coastline, sophisticated mining capabilities, coastal radar and surveillance infrastructure designed to track every vessel transiting the strait at all times. This is not incidental capability. This is the very foundation of Iranian strategic power. A mid-sized economy with limited conventional reach, Iran has turned the Strait of Hormuz into its primary instrument of leverage. By threatening to close or disrupt this waterway, Tehran can constrain the behavior of far more powerful states. It is the ultimate asymmetric weapon, a single point of failure that can paralyze global energy flows and force even superpowers to calculate carefully before acting. The temporary arrangement that preceded the current round of fighting was built around this reality. Whatever its precise terms, the deal included a clear Iranian commitment. Do not strike commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. In exchange, the United States provided a general license allowing Iran to sell oil through legitimate channels. This gave Tehran a desperately needed revenue stream under the crushing weight of existing sanctions. It was a straightforward economic trade at the heart of a fragile diplomatic pause. Iran gets a legitimate oil revenue window. The strait stays open. Diplomacy continues. Read that carefully. The United States was not asking Iran to surrender its defenses. It was simply demanding that Tehran refrain from attacking neutral commercial vessels in the world's most important energy artery. In return, Iran received a vital economic lifeline. This arrangement was never perfect, but it represented a calculated restraint, a framework designed to prevent exactly the kind of escalation we witnessed on July 7th. Iran's leaders knew the rules. They had been warned explicitly and repeatedly, yet they struck anyway. By attacking 3 commercial ships in the exact waterway the agreement was meant to protect, Iran did more than violate a single commitment. They deliberately shattered the core bargain that had kept the confrontation from spiraling out of control. At the same time, according to reporting confirmed by President Trump aboard Air Force One, Iranian negotiators were still calling the American side, expressing their desire for a deal, while Shahed drones were still in the air over the Gulf, while Iranian munitions were heading toward civilian cargo vessels. The same government was seeking diplomatic accommodation. This is not a contradiction in the Western sense. This is classic Iranian dual-track strategy. Apply military pressure while maintaining a negotiating channel, using each to reinforce the other. But this time, Iran severely miscalculated the response it would provoke. And that miscalculation changed everything. On July 7th, Iran crossed a line they had been explicitly warned not to cross. Iranian forces attacked 3 commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, using 5 confirmed drones and missiles distributed across all 3 hulls. The strikes occurred in the exact waterway Iran had committed to keep open under the previous diplomatic arrangement. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate provocation. What makes this moment even more revealing is the timing. According to reporting confirmed by President Trump aboard Air Force One, Iranian negotiators had contacted the American side to express their desire for a deal, while the Shahed drones were still airborne over the Gulf. While Iranian munitions were en route to civilian cargo ships, the same government in Tehran was simultaneously seeking diplomatic accommodation. This is the essence of Iran's dual-track strategy. Apply military pressure while keeping a negotiating channel open, using each track to strengthen the other. Western diplomats might see this as contradictory. In Tehran, it is standard operating procedure. But this particular iteration produced a response Iran had severely miscalculated. At the exact same moment the initial American military response was unfolding, the U.S. Treasury Department revoked the general license that had allowed Iran to sell oil through legitimate channels. Billions of dollars per month in revenue. The primary economic concession granted during the negotiating period were frozen instantly. The economic and military pressure tracks were activated simultaneously. This coordination was not improvised. The license revocation was pre-prepared. The target packages had already been built. The decision about what would happen if Iran struck commercial shipping again had been made well before July 7th. When Iran chose to strike, America's pre-planned response deployed across both military and economic dimensions at once. The simultaneity is strategically significant. A military campaign without the economic dimension would allow Iran to sustain operations using oil revenue even as its hardware was being degraded. An economic sanction without military action would give Tehran time to find workarounds, gray market buyers, alternative routes, barter arrangements. By combining both at the same moment, the United States denied Iran the revenue needed to fund replenishment and destroyed the physical infrastructure through which that replenishment could arrive. Iran's oil income froze on July 7th. Its primary supply routes and naval capabilities would soon follow. The trap had been set. Iran walked right into it. Night 1, July 7th into July 8th. 80 confirmed Iranian military targets destroyed. The strike package concentrated on Iran's coastal infrastructure, the maritime-facing military architecture Tehran uses to threaten commercial shipping. Radar sites went dark. Fast attack boat facilities were obliterated at their moorings. Drone launch capabilities were reduced to smoking craters. The very systems activated on July 7th to attack those 3 commercial vessels found themselves at the receiving end of American precision-guided munitions before the night was over. Night 2, July 8th into July 9th. 90 more confirmed targets. Here, the strategic picture becomes significantly more interesting. The second night did not simply continue where the first left off. It expanded geographically in ways that communicated a much broader American operational objective, one that went far beyond immediate punishment. The strikes now reached Bandar Abbas, Konarak, Chabahar, Bushehr, and additional sites in northeastern Iran. Bandar Abbas deserves special mention. It is Iran's largest and most operationally significant port on the Persian Gulf, home to the IRGC Navy's main fleet and the primary hub for military supplies and weapons movement. Striking Bandar Abbas was not a peripheral operation. It was a direct hit on the center of Iranian naval logistics. Even more significant was the inclusion of Chabahar in the same strike package. Chabahar is Iran's only deepwater port with direct access to the Indian Ocean. For years, Tehran has developed it as a strategic hedge, a bypass around the Strait of Hormuz. If the strait were ever closed or severely restricted, Chabahar would serve as Iran's lifeline to the world. That port is now inside the American strike envelope. CENTCOM is not simply defending the Strait of Hormuz. It is methodically eliminating every naval option Iran possesses, coastline by coastline. The Persian Gulf facilities, the Indian Ocean bypass at Chabahar, the fast attack boat fleets across multiple ports, the radar and surveillance networks that provide situational awareness. Each node in Iran's maritime power projection network is being treated comprehensively and systematically. The weapons and platforms used in this operation tell their own story. The F-15E Strike Eagle formed the backbone of the precision strike element. This 2-seat, twin-engine aircraft penetrated defended airspace at low altitude and high speed. delivering GBU-31 2,000-pound joint direct attack munitions against hardened infrastructure and GBU-38 500-pound variants for more discrete targets. The mix reflects a target set that included both heavily reinforced facilities and precision engagements near mixed-use environments. F-16CJ Wild Weasels provided dedicated suppression of enemy air defenses. Their continued role confirms that residual Iranian air defense systems were being actively hunted rather than simply avoided. HARM anti-radiation missiles ensured Iranian radar operators remained too busy to effectively cue surface-to-air missiles. Carrier-based FA-18 Super Hornets delivered AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, while EA-18G Growlers used ALQ-99 jamming systems to suppress Iranian radar and communications, creating a protective electromagnetic umbrella for the strike packages. Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from Arleigh Burke-class destroyers added standoff precision capability. Flying at approximately 100 feet above terrain, these 1,000-pound warhead missiles operated below the effective engagement envelope of many Iranian systems, delivering GPS-guided destruction without placing pilots in harm's way. MQ-9 Reaper drones provided persistent surveillance and strike capability, particularly effective against dispersed IRGC fast attack boats. Their ability to loiter for over 20 hours allowed methodical prosecution of targets of opportunity. Over 60 IRGC fast attack boats have already been confirmed destroyed in this campaign. This combined architecture, F-15E precision strikes, Wild Weasel SAD Super Hornet anti-ship missions, Growler electronic warfare, Tomahawk standoff strikes, and MQ-9 persistence, created an interlocking system. If Iranian radar activated to track strike aircraft, Wild Weasels fired harms. If fast attack boats moved against carrier groups, MQ-9s and Harpoon-equipped Hornets engaged them. If air defenses attempted high-altitude intercepts, Tomahawks arrived from below. No single element of Iran's defense could counter all components simultaneously. The target footage released by CENTCOM shows a clear pattern. Ballistic missile launchers destroyed, coastal radar batteries eliminated, S-300 variant systems hit, drone facilities wiped out, and fast attack craft sunk at sea or at dock. This was not broad punishment. This was a targeted campaign against Iran's specific capability to threaten international shipping. By the end of 48 hours, 170 Iranian military targets lay in ruins. The message was unmistakable. America possesses both the will and the means to systematically dismantle Iran's maritime power projection, and it has now begun to do so. While American munitions were still reshaping Iran's coastline, Tehran launched its retaliation. Iranian forces deployed Shahed kamikaze drones against civilian locations across Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar. Apartment buildings, hotels, civilian neighborhoods, international airports. These were not military targets. They were population centers. The Bahrain Defense Force issued a formal statement that deserves to be read carefully. Iran is persisting in systematic hostile approaches through heinous attacks involving missiles and drones targeting civilians in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Systematic, heinous, targeting civilians. This is not the language of a government describing a legitimate military exchange. This is the language used when a state accuses another of deliberately attacking non-combatants. Iran's own parliament speaker, Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, effectively acknowledged the nature of the response in his public statement. America still hasn't learned that bullying is no longer cost-free. If you strike, you'll get hit. The "you'll get hit" in that formulation is revealing. Based on where Iranian munitions actually landed, it was the civilian populations of neighboring Gulf states who bore the cost of Iran's retaliation. Mohsen Rezaei, military advisor to the supreme leader, warned that the aggressor enemy and its accomplices will be severely punished. This has become the standard formulation, deployed after every significant military loss Iran has absorbed throughout this conflict. The gap between the severity of the rhetoric and the actual results on the ground is one of the defining features of the current military picture. While America conducted precision strikes against military targets, Iran responded by firing drones at apartment buildings and civilian infrastructure. This matters. It reveals both operational limitations and a strategic choice. Unable to effectively strike American military assets, Tehran opted to terrorize Gulf civilian populations instead, hoping to fracture regional unity and international support for the American operation. NATO's entry into the picture proved that strategy failed. The alliance explicitly acknowledged and validated the American position. Iran had been given every opportunity to keep the strait open. Its attacks on commercial shipping violated agreements made in good faith, and the U.S. military response was proportionate and justified. This was not trivial. NATO's political endorsement provides legal and political scaffolding that prevents the American campaign from being isolated as a unilateral action. It brings the collective weight of the Western alliance behind the operation. For Iranian planners, who had long sought to drive a wedge between the United States and European NATO members, this alignment was a serious blow. Their strategy to exploit European economic interests and reluctance for Middle East military action had not worked. Iran's retaliation revealed more about its weakening position than it inflicted meaningful damage on its adversary. The drones hit civilians, the statements grew louder, but the fundamental military reality continued shifting against Tehran. The true significance of these 48 hours extends far beyond the 170 destroyed targets. This is a strategic inflection point. NATO's explicit alignment with the American position is particularly important. The alliance validated that Iran had been given every opportunity to keep the strait open, that its attacks on commercial shipping violated agreements made in good faith, and that the U.S. response was both proportionate and justified. This closes the political space Iran had hoped to exploit. Tehran's long-standing strategy of driving wedges between Washington and European capitals has, for now, failed. Even more critical is the internal picture inside Iran. The Islamic Republic operates through a dual power structure. The clerical leadership, the mullahs, and the IRGC's military hierarchy function in parallel, with overlapping authority and often diverging interests. The mullahs have a vested interest in regime survival and international legitimacy. The IRGC prioritizes its institutional power, leverage over the strait, and the economic benefits that come with controlling maritime traffic. This duality explains the contradictory behavior we have witnessed. Negotiators calling for deals while drones are launched against civilian targets. Both sides can operate within the same system without formally overruling each other. Complicating everything is the 130-day invisibility of Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader. He has not appeared in any confirmed public format for months. This creates genuine analytical uncertainty about who actually controls the trigger in Tehran. Who authorized the July 7th attacks? Who ordered the Shahed strikes on Bahrain? Who made the call to the American side asking for a deal? You cannot sign a durable agreement with a government whose chain of command has become functionally opaque. The global dimension adds another layer of pressure. On July 8th and 9th, while the world focused on the Strait of Hormuz, Ukrainian forces conducted one of their most aggressive deep strike campaigns of the war. They hit multiple Russian oil refineries, set tankers ablaze in the Sea of Azov, and struck pipeline infrastructure deep inside Russia. Russia, Iran's primary military supplier, is now being pressured simultaneously in its own theater and through the degradation of its Iranian partner. The Russia-Iran-China axis is feeling the strain of concurrent vulnerabilities. Now consider Iran's material position as of July 10th, 2026. Its oil revenue license has been revoked, freezing billions in monthly income. Chabahar, the strategic Indian Ocean bypass port, is inside the American strike package. More than 60 IRGC fast attack boats, the primary tool for harassing commercial shipping, have been destroyed. Air defense systems have been progressively degraded. Key naval logistics hubs like Bandar Abbas have been hit hard. The supreme leader remains invisible. The command structure is fractured. The mullahs call for deals while IRGC generals launch drones. Someone in Tehran still picked up the phone to ask for negotiations, even as 170 targets burned. That phone call may be the most important data point of the entire operation. It suggests that at least some elements within the Iranian system understand the arithmetic of survival. They recognize what 170 precision strikes in 48 hours, combined with economic strangulation, means for their remaining capabilities. The consequences are compounding. Without oil revenue, replenishing destroyed military hardware becomes nearly impossible. With Chabahar and Bandar Abbas under threat, Iran's maritime options are collapsing. The radar networks that once provided situational awareness are silent. The drone launch facilities that fed the Shahed swarms have been eliminated. Iran's foreign ministry has called the American strikes a gross war crime. The parliament speaker insists bullying is no longer cost-free. Yet the military reality tells a different story. The fast attack boats that once enforced Tehran's will now lie at the bottom of the Gulf. The ports that served as lifelines are targets. The revenue that funded the IRGC is frozen. The campaign is not over. CENTCOM has stated it is prepared to sustain operations for weeks, and everything necessary is already in position. The 170 strikes represent only the highest priority items on a much longer target list. What comes next will be decided by whoever is actually exercising authority in Tehran tonight, if anyone still can. The events of these 48 hours have fundamentally altered the strategic landscape in the Middle East. 170 Iranian military targets destroyed. A critical oil revenue lifeline severed. Iran's maritime power projection network systematically dismantled from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean. The supreme leader, invisible for 130 days, a fractured command structure struggling to respond coherently, and a desperate phone call to the American side, made while the strikes were still landing. This is not just another round of escalation. This is the methodical degradation of Iran's most important strategic asset, its ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz. The phone call from an unidentified Iranian interlocutor may ultimately prove to be the most significant moment of the entire operation. While official rhetoric in Tehran grew louder and more defiant, someone in the system recognized the reality of what 170 precision strikes, combined with economic isolation, actually means. Trump's refusal to name the caller only underscores the dangerous uncertainty surrounding Iran's current chain of command. As of July 10, 2026, Iran finds itself in an extremely precarious position. Its fast attack boats, the primary tool for harassing commercial shipping, lie at the bottom of the Gulf. Its key ports are under direct threat. Its air defenses are degraded. Its oil revenue is frozen. And its leadership structure appears increasingly opaque even to itself. CENTCOM has made clear it is prepared to sustain this campaign for weeks, if necessary. The target list that produced 170 strikes in the first 48 hours is not exhausted. It is priority ordered, and what remains below the top tier should keep Iranian military planners awake tonight. Looking ahead, the next 72 hours may prove decisive. Iran faces a stark choice: accept a dramatically weakened strategic position and seek a genuine deal, or continue a fight it is structurally unprepared to win. Any negotiated settlement reached now will be far less favorable to Tehran than the one available just weeks ago. The message from Washington is unmistakable. The era of unchecked Iranian disruption in the Strait of Hormuz is coming to an end. What happens next will depend on whether anyone in Tehran still possesses the authority to make commitments that the IRGC will actually honor. If you've been following this rapidly evolving situation, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you believe is really in control in Tehran right now? How do you see this playing out over the coming weeks? If you found this analysis valuable, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We will continue delivering detailed, fact-based breakdowns as this story develops. The campaign is not over. The consequences are only beginning to unfold. This is John Senior Secrets. Stay informed, stay ahead.